In this short video, I want to talk to you about how to refer to future time in French. And there are actually several ways of doing that. Now, we're lucky because they're actually very close to what we do in English. So let's start right now. Allons-y. There are three ways to refer to future time in French. And by refer to future time, I mean talk about the future. Remember, we need to make the difference between time and tense. Time being literally seconds, minutes, hours, and so on, clicking away on your watch, whereas a tense is a notion in grammar, usually involving a verb and a series of endings. Now, unfortunately, people sometimes confuse the two, so when I talk about future time, I'm talking about later, tomorrow, next week, and so on. When I talk about the present tense, I'm talking about using the stem of the verb and adding a present tense ending to it. And the reason I'm introducing this distinction is precisely because one way of referring to future time in French is indeed to use the present tense. Look at my example. Je mange au restaurant. This sentence is in the present. Well, all I have to do is to add what we'll simply call a future word, such as demain, tomorrow, and my sentence now refers to future time. It is about a future event, and you can do exactly the same thing in English, by the way. The second way to refer to future time in French is to use what I've called the aller future. This is really very similar to using going to in English. Here's the verb aller in the present tense. And what we are going to do is to slot whichever form of aller we need, the underlined part that is, in front of the verb describing the future action we are referring to. So in my example, je mange au restaurant, the action is mange, the subject is je, so I need to slot in the je form of aller before mange. Of course, I now have two verbs following each other, so the second one needs to be in the dictionary form of the verb. And there you have it. Je vais manger au restaurant. I'm going to eat at the restaurant. And in some contexts, you could still use what we've called a future word earlier on and have je vais manger au restaurant demain. The third way to refer to future time is what I've called the tag-on future, because it uses an ending, and in your grammar book it may be called the grammatical future for that reason. So, here is the set of endings that are actually used. Est for je, a for tu, a for il, elle, and on, and notice the pronunciation for a, tu, and a, il, elle, on is exactly the same, a, though naturally the s in a, es, might sometimes be used for a liaison onto the next word starting with a vowel sound, and we would have a z sound. More endings, on for nous and et for vous, nothing surprising there, and again the s or the z are not pronounced unless we have a liaison onto the next word starting with a vowel sound, in which case we would have a z sound. And finally, on for il and elle plural. And here, the T is not pronounced, as you would have guessed, unless, once again, you have a liaison onto the next word starting with a vowel sound. This time, you'd have a T sound. Now, how those endings are used is a bit surprising at first, but you'll see it in fact makes things simpler, because what I'm using here is the dictionary form of the verb, and I tag the ending right onto it. So my example becomes je mangerai au restaurant. And again, in some contexts, you could still use a future word and have je mangerai au restaurant demain. Let's practice this. We have our list of subjects. Let's add verbs. And of course, we want to have their dictionary form. And finally, our tag-on endings. So all I need to do is pick a subject, a verb in the dictionary form, and the ending corresponding to the subject I picked. And here's our first example. Je partirai. I will leave. Here are a few more examples. On parlera. We will talk. Nous boirons. We will drink. Notice we need to adjust slightly and drop the E of the dictionary form here. Vous comprendrez. You will understand. And in this case, of course, we only keep one E. And finally, wait, this is not correct. So, unfortunately, there are a few irregularities to our nice pattern. What do I mean by irregularities? Well, have a look at this. We have our same subjects and our same endings. These do not change. So what changes is the part of the verb we tag the ending onto. We know aller is irregular. And by the way, this is no surprise. It was already irregular in the present. But also irregular are être, avoir, venir, faire. How do they work? Well, we still pick one of our subjects. We pick a verb, but the part we tag the ending onto, what we call the stem, is actually now going to be different. For être, it is sœur. And then we tag on the ending we need. So the tag-on future of être, using je as a subject, is je serai, I will be. For avoir, the stem is aur. And the tag-on future, using tu as a subject this time, is tu auras, you will have. For faire, the stem is faire. And we have here, elle fera, she will do. For venir, the stem is viendre, and our example becomes vous viendrez, you will come. And finally, aller, the stem is ir, and our example here is elles iront, they will go. So you need to get used to these stems, which is a polite way of saying you need to learn them. But don't worry, it's not a one-off. They are used in other parts of the French grammar. So here are a few more irregular verbs. We've seen être and avoir already. Well, savoir, to know, not surprisingly, looks very much like avoir. And pouvoir, to be able to, is not very different. The stem for vouloir, to want, follows somehow the same logic. We've already seen venir, and look, tenir, to hold, is not much different. And finally, we have faire. Now remember, the endings are perfectly regular. They remain the same. Now, of course, the three ways we've described to refer to future time actually have a different value. They don't exactly mean the same thing. Je mange demain, je mangerai demain, je vais manger demain are fairly different types of sentences, but that will be the question in our next lesson. I'll see you, well, in the future. À bientôt.
All good.
Thank you very much.
Yo.
Just the one conclusion is enough.